So it was over on our video for who should not supplement with potassium that Jack asked what would be the reason for low white blood cell count, or WBC like all the cool kids call it. And in the body there's different types of white blood cells that might have different jobs that they're supposed to do. Some types will kind of engulf or like digest a pathogen, while others might use antibodies and others might do other tasks. But when these numbers go low, and this test is pretty common on most blood tests, so when we see that go low, we might want to understand what's going on. So in this video we're going to look at the ranges that they tell us we should really fall within, why those numbers might go low, and steps a person could take to kind of turn that situation around. Let's jump in.
T.C. Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So remember, I'm not a doctor and I don't know Jack. I couldn't possibly be giving him any type of medical advice. I don't know his specific situation, but I wanted to share some studies that I found on this topic, and I'll put links in the description below to all these studies that we reference, but we can just go over some things here that can help you understand the right questions to ask your doctor when you're digging into this a little bit. And the first thing to understand is that there are some significant health issues that can cause this white blood cell count to go down. Things like, HIV and hepatitis and problems with the bone marrow and significant medical treatments, And so there are things like medications that can also make it go lower. Specific types of infections can make this number go low because maybe the body's using up too many white blood cells faster than they can be created. And then of course sometimes when there's an infection like that, they'll give you antibiotics that happen to be on that list of medications that can lower white blood cells. So just don't feel like everything has to make sense when you're digging through this. You might find some things that were like, oh, how does that even make sense? And that's just kind of how it goes. But the reference range that they say that we should fall between is between 4.5 and 11. And that might be shown as like 4,500, depending on how they measured it. But this is the reference range that they say that we should be in, that this is normal. And one thing that we need to understand is that things like smoking and inflammation have the ability to raise the white blood cell count, especially inflammation. When there's things going on, that means, well, we're going to bring this immune system here to help kind of fix this problem. So a lot of people have high levels of inflammation. A lot of people smoke and they're creating all these issues. So just because a range is normal doesn't mean that it's optimal and that that's really what you're shooting for. So when we look at these studies like white blood cell count as a predictor for mortality, and a lot of these studies said really similar things, when you look at this normal reference range, when we do these studies on, okay, if a person's white blood cell count is a little bit higher, what are the chances that they're going to die from pretty much anything? And all of these studies agreed that when people have on this higher range, even in the normal reference range, when it's on the higher end of that, they have a much greater chance of dying from something. So it seems like a better idea is to have it on the lower side. And this study here on the revision and reference ranges, they kind of talked about that when we're looking at all of these studies showing us that how the people that are in this higher end of the normal reference range are dying off, that maybe we should lower this. Maybe a more optimal range would be in this 3.1 to 8.8 range. And that's what they suggested would be a more good range for us to really try to stay between. But when we're looking at these issues that can really raise this white blood cell count, it seems like trying to stay on the lower end of that 3.1 to 8.8 range should really be our goal. So if we're seeing a range that falls below what they view as normal, that 4.5, but it's pretty close to that, is that more of an optimal situation? Well, this study seemed to think so, and you can dig into that a little bit more below. So we also want to consider the fact that the smoking rates have gone way down. Some of you whippersnappers might not know, but we used to think it was cool if somebody had all their clothes smelling really bad and their house smelled and their teeth turned yellow and they were doing whatever they could to die sooner. We thought that was cool. people don't really think smoking is as cool as they used to, so a lot less people are smoking now. So now it might be more normal to see these rates a little bit lower since less people are voluntarily doing things to kind of raise that inflammation in the body. Now, another thing we need to think about with this inflammation is that someone being overweight or obese also has the ability to raise that inflammation, and there's studies that show correlations between this obesity issue and a higher white blood cell count. So we want to think about those things as well when we're looking at where do we really want to fall? What are we going to model ourselves after when we're shooting for this range that really seems to be optimal for our health? So beyond that point of view, if the numbers are still lower than you want them to be, we need to look at other things to consider. And one thing to consider is we see a lot about malnutrition or nutrient deficiencies, especially with things like copper and zinc and B12 or folate. These seem to be some common nutrient deficiencies that show up when we're looking at this low white blood cell count. And when we're looking at issues like this, it's interesting that, zinc, we talk about zinc a lot when it comes to this whole immune system and its ability to function correctly. And when we're looking at nutrient deficiencies like this, especially when we're looking at minerals, it's usually due to some digestive malfunction that is restricting a person's ability to really break their food down correctly and access all the nutrients out of that food. So if you're dealing with any type of digestive symptom whatsoever, like burping or bloating or acid reflux or constipation or diarrhea or nausea or even skin or acne issues, all of these are signs that the digestive process is not working correctly, which means that you might not be accessing all the nutrients in the food, and we can see nutrient deficiencies in issues like those. So if that's the case, taking steps to improve any digestive malfunctions can be a big deal. We talk about that in a lot of videos. I'm not going to get into that. If you need help with that, I'll put a link in the description below from my book, Kick Your Fat in the Nuts. In chapters 3 and 4, I'll kind of walk you through figuring out those digestive processes, and the book's on Amazon, but if you use that link below, you can get the whole thing totally for free and then just jump to those chapters. So other things that we need to think about with this low white blood cell count are stress and cortisol. Cortisol has the ability to reduce the white blood cell count, and we need to think about, okay, is my life stressed? Am I yelling at my neighbors? Is my boss a jerk? Is this traffic so stupid? Why do I live where there's so much traffic? That can happen in your life, but even if there's not stress in your life, there could be stress in the body. The body could be dealing with some type of burden, whether that's, a lack of nutrients, like we were just talking about, or maybe some other type of like heavy metal burden or some other infection that you might not know about. There's a lot of things in the body that could be stressing to the body that could also raise those cortisol levels. So that's something to consider. And when you research this, you may also see people saying, well, the hormonal, imbalances can create this lower levels of white blood cells. And a lot of times the hormones are going to be all jacked up and going crazy because the body is elevating these hormones to try to fix a problem or deal with some type of burden. Just like this cortisol going high, other stress hormones and hormones can go high when the body is not functioning the way that it wants to. So sometimes it's not about, oh, my hormones are broken. Sometimes it's about digging into this puzzle of your body and figuring out what's going wrong. Now, another thing that we look at when you look at people talking about what can I do to raise my white blood cell count, a lot of them are going to give you suggestions that are supposed to improve the ability for the immune system to function correctly. So what we want to look at is some people are going to talk about, well, what about the white blood cell activity? There might be enough white blood cells there, but they're not as active as we really want them to be. And there's some issues there, and they're going to talk about, well, you need to use D3, K2 and magnesium. They talk a little bit about cod liver oil, and I kind of view cod liver oil as a good source of vitamin A without really supplementing with vitamin A. People supplementing with vitamin A and getting too much vitamin A can be just as problematic as not getting enough vitamin A. So I really like to see clients get vitamin A from other sources like food sources, or something like a cod liver oil could be okay too. But when we're looking at this, we're looking at this security response really. And sometimes it's not really the white blood cells activity, it's just that the response of the immune system is not being triggered correctly. And these type of misunderstandings are very common when we're looking at health. A lot of people look at gallbladder problems like, stupid gallbladder's not working correctly. But in a lot of cases, it's really about other malfunctions that aren't working correctly, so the gallbladder is not being signaled to do its job. And a similar situation can happen with the immune system. I'm going to put a link in the description below for our video on getting over a cold fast. And that talks about a lecture from Dr. Mark Anderson where he explains how it's really important to have calcium in the tissue level at the right place so that the immune system can be triggered and can be told, hey, there's a problem that you have to come take care of. And if we do things that strip the calcium out of those tissues, then it has the ability to kind of shut that down where the immune system's like, hey, nobody called me, I ain't doing nothing. So there's things like eating too many carbohydrates and sugars, and you see a lot about this, like, oh, too much sugar is going to restrict the white blood cells from working correctly. And sometimes, is that the case, or is it this whole system of being triggered is not really happening because sugar has the ability to pull calcium out of the places where it's really supposed to be? So one thing to look at is this, D3, K2, and magnesium. All of those are involved in the process of bringing calcium into the body and also pushing it into the right places. So don't just view this like, oh, I should supplement with calcium. That's really not always the case. A lot of times it's about calcium displacement because of the way a person is eating, or maybe they're even supplementing with too much vitamin D. Kind of like vitamin A, too much can be just as problematic as not enough. So check out that video and that'll dig into that part of the understanding of just is this security system being triggered or not to put these things into action. And then the final thing I'll mention is that benzene is an ingredient in a lot of personal care products, and I'll put a link to a study below that talks about how it seems to have the ability to lower white blood cell counts. And the studies on this do not really agree, so I don't view this as a slam dunk. But man, if you look at your shampoo and it's got benzene in it, it's pretty easy just to switch to a different shampoo. So I like to put whatever you can in your favor, so if this is a problem for you and you're not understanding why, that study might give you some insights on, oh, maybe I can just take steps to get rid of this ingredient in some of the things I'm using. So when you're looking at the steps that you can take on your own or tests that you can have your doctor run to look at specific nutrients and such, it really seems like the important things are dealing with any stress in your life or in your body, making sure that your body is getting these minerals and nutrients that it needs so that those white blood cells can be there and they can function correctly, and then also making sure that your immune system can function. That security system can be triggered and that you're not pulling all the calcium out of the tissues by the way that you're eating and such. So I hope that gives you some insights here, and if you're not sure if your digestion is working correctly, you can jump over right now and check out our video on 20 signs you're not digesting your food correctly. I can't wait to hear about your results.